So I'm not getting as much regen and as much braking as I come off throttle. Yeah, the Hulk smash, the Hyundai has to get past the Hulk smash thing.
Yeah, I feel like that's the
We've done it, we tried it,
Yeah.
we can move on.
If they took that away, kept these luscious curves.
Luscious. Would you go so far as to say voluptuous?
Welcome to Downshift, everyone. My name is Paulo.
And my name is Matt, and we have spent the week finally with one of the most exciting cars of this year. This is the 2025 Hyundai Ioniq 5N. It competes with things like Tesla Model Y performances, Kia EV6 GTs, Mustang Mach-E GTs, and most importantly of all, this was the only EV contender that I considered before I bought my BMW M340i. So we're going to talk about the competitors, and we're going to talk about whether or not I made the right choice in what I bought. So let's get into it with the best and the rest. Now in a minute we're going to talk about HDAS and all the other technology bits that this Ioniq 5N has to keep you safe on the road. But what happens when you're not on the road? A lot of us are spending more and more of our lives online, so how do you stay safe online? It's not going to surprise anyone when I say that in today's digital age we are all at risk for online crime, and one of the reasons is because big companies can't keep our data safe. You know, I recently learned that AT&T revealed nearly all their customers' call and text records had been exposed in a massive data breach. The stolen logs even contain a record of every number AT&T customers called or texted, so even if you don't use AT&T, if someone you texted did, then your number has been exposed. That's why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura alerts me if they find any of my sensitive information has been compromised. They also give me fast fraud alerts if anyone tries to use that data to access my credit or bank accounts. Aura does so much more to keep me and my family safe. I get transaction monitoring, a VPN, antivirus, a password manager, parental controls, and an identity theft insurance, all in one app and at an affordable price. They even have an AI-powered call assistant that screens unknown calls for spam or scams, forwarding only legit calls to me. I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches anymore, and if you don't want to either, you can go to aura.com/downshift to try your first 2 weeks for free. And there's also a link down in the description. So back to the video. Really the only thing that I can actually complain about with this car is it is overly complicated once you get into the performance stuff. You go into your N mode style screen here, and there's just a million things that you can control, and a lot of them are dependent on other things you already have set. Like I went into the track and I wanted to have my N pedal on for max regen. You have to have it in a certain mode, and I wanted to have N race on. But then for whatever reason, I went out, did my scouting lap, I went to check, and N race had turned itself off. I go to N battery over here, I was in track mode, but then the battery temperature had gotten out of the optimal range or whatever. So there's drag mode, which is of course very fast and very fun. You can adjust your torque distribution so you can send more power to the front or the rear or whatever. There's a drift mode. I mean, there's so many cool things that you can do here. You've got a lap timer. It automatically sensed when I was at Road America, which was very, very cool. You've got brake and throttle input. And then of course you've got launch control and different performance options. Obviously your E-shift, your sound setting. So there's so many things that you can do, but so many things are also dependent on other things that you already have set, and it just does get to be a little bit too complicated. And then there's just a couple weird little things here and there, little nitpicks, if you will. Like for one, we don't get rear window shades. I believe they get those in Canada. We also don't have a head-up display here. I believe you get that in Canada. And the seats, they're heated, they're cooled, and they're very nice. They're comfortable, they light up even, but they're manual adjustment. It's like, how much weight are you saving from that? The Bose speakers aren't amazing, but you can adjust the EQ and they can get them to sound pretty good. The ambient light, which you guys know that I love, is good. You get a bunch of different colors, but it's not the dual zone that you get in the Ioniq 6, so you can't have two colors going at once. And your shift and regen paddles, I love them. They're a huge part of the experience, but they do just feel a little tiny bit cheap. And you don't get a digital rear view mirror like you used to in the normal Ioniq 5. But with all those little tiny little things out of the way, let's talk about all the places that this Ioniq 5N shines, because it does.
He's got every man in here wishing. Is that how it goes?
Yeah. Sipping on coke and rum. I'm like, so what, I'm drunk. But switching gears and talking about all the great things about this car, far and away my favorite thing about this car and what this Hyundai Ioniq 5N does that nobody else touches, the Tesla doesn't do it, the EV6 doesn't do it, the Mustang Mach-E doesn't do it, is this. It's the fake shifting, the synthesized lie that I guess that they're telling you, but it's done so well, it's executed so well. The sound itself does sound a little bit synthesized. It's like 85-90% perfect, but the actual application of, okay, I'm going to downshift, now I'm getting engine braking, I'm redlining it, it's going to cut power because I'm on the limiter. It's executed so well that if someone didn't know this was an EV, they probably wouldn't really be able to tell that much. But there's different sounds that you can get here. Obviously, ignition, this is the one that's meant to synthesize an Elantra N. So you get that 4-cylinder turbo sound that we're kind of familiar with. You get the pop-pops. You can turn the pop-pops off, which we'll talk about in a second, but there's 3 sound profiles. So the other one is Evolution. This is basically built off of Hyundai's TCR cars. It sounds like it right about 4,000 RPM underneath. It just sounds kind of silly. But right about 4,000 RPM is when it starts to sound like an actual TCR car. And then supersonic, this one's kind of dumb in my opinion, but it just sounds like a bunch of whooshing. It's supposed to sound like a fighter jet. It just sounds like wind.
Can you redline this one?
It just sounds like cats shouting at each other. I don't really know. So ignition is definitely the most conventional sound that you get here. And you hit the little gear over here and you can adjust the volume. So you can have it all the way up at 20, which is proper loud, or you can have it all the way down at 0, which still gives you a little bit of sound. You can turn it off entirely. And then you can also choose whether or not you have it on the outside or just the inside. Don't play it on the outside. It's kind of cringe. Wouldn't you agree? It's a little cringe.
I actually want to hear it on the outside. I haven't heard it yet.
It sounds just like this.
Does it?
Yeah. But you can also turn off and on the pop-pops. So when you get above 4,000, 4,500 RPM, the little pop-pops that you get when on liftoff and in between gears and stuff like that, you can turn that off and on. So you have all of this customizability and all of this kind of familiarity, and it really felt more natural for me when we were on the track, driving it in this mode. I could kind of gauge where I was at, where my braking zones were, how much deceleration I was getting while I was downshifting. The lap times did not reflect that, but it did feel more natural and more comfortable when I was in this mode. And I just have to say, this is my favorite thing about the car. The first person that's going to bring an LC500 sound pack and the Lamborghini V10 sound pack, I will make you, I was going to say a rich man, but I'll make you a slightly richer man. But very, very much love this. Good job, Hyundai. And no one will be surprised by this point, but this thing is rapid. It is crazy fast. Dual motor, all-wheel drive, obviously great traction, bigger motor in the back, smaller motor in the rear, or in the front rather, but 601 horsepower as normal. You can hit this red NGB, or maybe it's orange, I don't know, I'm colorblind according to my wife, but you can hit this NGB button that's good for another 40 horsepower. 545 pound-feet of torque, you can up that with the NGB button by about 20. 0 to 60 is happening in the real world, 3.1, 3.2 seconds. It's got a simulated 8-speed automatic, or you can drive it in normal direct drive, you know, reduction gear, 0 gear kind of EV thing. It only weighs about 4,800 pounds, which is about 100 pounds more than the normal one, but for all this performance that you get here, I think it's best described by just showing the lap. So let's head to Road America and put it around the Motorplex. And as we cross the line, we're going to flip into the other mode. I like it more. Even just for the emotions. Oh, it really caught. You know, for some reason I feel more focused. I'm not getting the end pedal in this mode, so I'm not getting as much regen and as much braking as I come off throttle. And that lap time makes it officially and technically the fastest thing we've ever had around the track. 0.05 seconds faster than a BMW M3 competition. I wasn't kidding when I said this is fast, guys. And it's not bad to drive on track either. It handles really surprisingly well. And I do want to talk about range and efficiency, which is why we're back here. Obviously, this is where your charge port is. It's an 84 kilowatt hour battery pack. Of course, that's not the whole thing that's going to be usable, but estimated range is claimed at 221 miles, which is the biggest lie that I've seen while I've had this car for this week, because every single time that I took this thing off the charger, it showed 250 miles plus. The last time I drove it, which was after idling for shooting B-roll, which was after going to the track, and like some actual spirited driving and highway, which is hard on EVs, I was still showing about 2.7, 2.8 miles per kilowatt hour, and it was estimating, as I took it off the charger, about 270-ish miles for 100% battery, or even 94%. So the efficiency that you get here is fantastic. Now, when you do need to recharge it, if you find a charger fast enough, which good luck, but if you could find one fast enough, it'll charge 10 to 80%, there's a fly in front of my face, 10 to 80% in 18 minutes, which is very quick. I charge at home on my Emporia Level 2. That does it in about 7 hours. If you do want to get an Emporia and a Level 2, I would recommend it. I got a link in the description that's going to save you a bit of money. But this thing is really, really efficient with how it deploys power, and especially when we were on the racetrack, I only used about 15% battery. 15% battery when I did about 6 hot laps. So that's really, really impressive efficiency. When you use the N pedal, the regen that you get here is very, very impressive. So very good job on the range and efficiency, Hyundai. And we'll talk about the rear seats. The doors in the back are actually bigger than you get in the front. So you have a very big opening. They don't open quite 90 degrees, but it is pretty close. You do have some little checkerboard detailing here on your kick plate as well as on your door. But I'm gonna step in. I'm 6'1", sitting behind myself. Loads of knee room here and loads of headroom. The nub is safe. I know you guys are concerned about my nub. There's no need to worry here. You do have USB-Cs, 2 of them. You've got some checkerboard patterning in here. No map pockets back here, but the nice black Alcantara with the blue stitching. You do have some cup holders back here. No sunroof. You're not going to get the panoramic sunroof on the N. You're also not going to get window shades in the rear seats, but the Canada cars do. A little bit interesting, but no, overall, your vents are over here, not in your center console. That remains the same from the normal Ioniq 5, but it's incredibly comfortable back here. You get a little bit of drama visually here, and then here with some of the checkerboard patterning, and it's just nice. It's super comfortable and really practical in the back seat. And then when we come to the cargo area, of course, it is powered. I don't actually think the kick gesture works, or maybe it's just because it's so gunked up from the rain this week, but it's obviously powered. You do have power close, no power close and lock. We've seen this in a couple Hyundais actually. It's in the Palisade as well. But when you look at the space, 26 cubic feet of space. It's very big, very practical. The only thing is you're not gonna get like grocery bag hangers. You get a couple tie downs in the back here, but not a lot of actual additional auxiliary stuff. Look at how handsome my boy is on his wedding day. What a handsome boy. And then under here, apparently there's some stuff. There's a hidden N back here as well. What did you do this weekend?
Is this yours? Yeah, I need to give that to my mom.
Okay. Anyway, so when you do fold, for your own privacy.
Thanks.
When you do fold the seats, it's gonna be about 60 cubic feet of space. You can't fold it back here, and you can't fold it from the top of the back seat, so you actually have to go to the side. I guess we should show you. If we're here, we might as well. You have to actually go to the side and then pull on this little thing. I forgot to mention while we were in the back seats as well. They do recline and they slide. So you can see, you can have more or less space depending on where the seats actually are. So trunk space, pretty good. And I do want to talk about the cabin experience, because here for the N car, it's actually pretty different than it is in the normal Ioniq 5. It is dramatic and it is focused, but I think they've made some important ergonomical improvements to make this thing really work day to day. Now the only color that you're going to get to start with is black. So I hope you like black with, you know, pale blue accents. Your seats, they are heated, they're cooled. You even have a heated steering wheel, but they are manually adjustable and they light up. The interior, I think, is really unique, bespoke. It fits the car. You get this new dramatic steering wheel with a bunch of buttons and customizability on it. It's a little daunting at first, I'm not gonna lie. There's a million different things to customize, as we've talked about, but once you spend a day or two with it, you start to figure out what things do. It starts to make a lot of sense, and you do have shortcut buttons, which does help quite a bit. And speaking of buttons, you have physical buttons for your climate controls here. This is worlds better than you get in the Kia EV6 system. But anyway, you get into your center console here, and this bit right next to my right knee is completely reworked and is bespoke for this N car versus the normal Ioniq 5, and I love it. The wireless charger here is exactly where I want it to be. It's got a rubberized backing to it, so it actually flushes or sits flush with the phone and actually charges the phone really, really well. You do have some plugins for USB-Cs, but then you have your cup holders and stuff. So this used to be just an open tunnel area next to your feet. It felt big and spacious on the interior, but it wasn't practical. You couldn't store anything. Now you have these deployable cup holders. You've got additional storage down here, plus your center console. I mean, it really just works. When we talk about the technology suite here, it's classic Hyundai. It's like everything that you could possibly want, except for a head-up display, even though they get it in Canada. I don't know why we don't have a head-up display here. It's a little odd. But you do have a huge 12.3-inch instrument cluster. It changes based on drive modes, and it does a whole load of things. It gives you way too much information, but you know, it's great. I'd love to have more than not enough. And then your center screen here, 12.3 inches. It's reskinned in the new graphics that we saw. Originally, I think it was the Kona that we saw these for the first time. It's also kind of trickled down from Genesis, but it's very snappy, very quick. All of the typical stuff. You've got your quiet mode, you've got your sounds of nature. Lively Forest is still fantastic. Wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, at least, I don't know about Android Auto, but wireless CarPlay for sure. 360 camera, and it's in performance blue, which is kind of a nice touch. Usually they're all in white, so I do kind of like that. I do also like the fact that you have physical buttons here to control your shortcuts and your climate stuff, but everything to do with the technology, I'm a big fan of, and I'm a very big fan of what they've done here to reuse this space and make it more practical, and the wireless charger here works very, very well. It's raised, it's rubberized, so your phone doesn't go anywhere, it sits flush, and actually charges. Good job, Hyundai. It's so fast!
Oh,
I love it,
little
dude.
Snap, crackle, and pops.
I'm gonna be honest, I love basically everything about this car.
It's brilliant.
I know you want me to talk about my standouts,
but it's everything.
but it's everything, pretty much.
I do.
Pretty much everything.
I think we talk a lot about it in the video, but just the gearbox, the NE shift, right, which basically is supposed to replicate what a standard gearbox would be in an internal combustion engine.
Yes.
They have done it so well here. The torque curve and the power bands that you have in here are just awesome. Granted, it is a bit slower than if you were just completely in electric mode.
But I will take that every single day.
You feel more at home. You feel more in your element with what they've done here. And it sounds pretty good. It acts just like the real thing. It is very impressive what they did.
The actual application is done flawlessly.
Yeah.
You bang rev limiter, cuts power. You downshift into first, it's gonna engine brake. It's so good. The sound is 85-90% there, as we've talked about.
It's so close.
It still sounds a little synthesized, but it's executed so well. And yeah, I guess if we're talking standouts, if I have to pick one thing, it's that.
Yeah.
Because this to me is an inflection point in the EV thing. This to me makes EVs something that an enthusiast would get into. This is the thing that makes me want to buy this car. If it didn't have this, I'd be like, okay, I would get an EV6 GT, but I wouldn't because it doesn't really do anything for me. It's fast, okay, cool, but like, it's the shifting, it's the sound. It so closely mirrors an ICE experience. Hands down, the best thing. Yeah, this is the future.
The engagement and the soul here, and you really got to credit Hyundai for going out and creating something like this, and basically being the first ones to bring this to market. That is so awesome.
Yeah, and having done it so well the first time.
Exactly. Okay, so we talked about that. Let's quickly compare it. This person is scaring the shit out of me.
She has no teeth. Did you see her? She had one of those mouths that was like...
You can always tell.
You know.
You can always tell. Okay, I really quickly want to compare this to some of the competitors that we had initially we had initially discussed at the very beginning. So that was the Mach-E GT, the EV6 GT, and the Model Y performance. So why don't you quickly just high level talk about pricing and anything else you want to mention, and then I can talk about power and weight.
Yeah, so everything is going to be less expensive than this thing. We kind of talked about it before. This is like $66,000, $67,000. The Model Y performance is going to be like $10,000 less or something around there. The EV6 GT is going to be like $5,000 less. I don't even know what the Mustang is, but it's less.
It's a lot less.
It's a lot less. And yeah, it's not hundreds, it's thousands. It's like a significant margin. But none of those come anywhere close to giving me the fizz that this car does.
Yeah.
So it's so worth it to me.
Yeah.
Now, the Model Y, sorry, I'm just going to wrap out this thought. The Model Y is the best one on paper. If you're just driving a car on paper, you just want a fast EV, it's going to have a bigger trunk than this, it's going to have more range than this, it's going to have, you know, a frunk and all of that stuff. It's going to have the supercharged network, it's going to make more sense day to day. But I don't live on paper. I like to live
in the real
with the
world.
little paddles. Yes. So, yes.
Yeah, so from a driving perspective and an engagement perspective, I think this is the best one, hands down.
100%.
To your point, though, the most like practical, most likely the Model Y.
Straight. Yeah, the Model Y is definitely the best all-around EV on paper. The Mustang GT is, or the Mach-E GT, I don't know, it just never really gave me any sort of fizz. It's fast, it looks all right, but it's
EV6
kind
is
of
ugly.
meh. The EV6, I hit my nub in the driver's seat, so that one is a no-go. But this is so far and away first place.
Yeah.
And then I probably wouldn't get a Tesla.
So I think that begs the question, like, does this then start to compete on a broader scale with internal combustion engines? Does it earn that ability?
Right, because now you're introducing shifting,
right,
engine sound. So now it's not really about power source, because it's a similar experience.
Well,
it's just how long it's going to take to fill up.
But that's
right?
that range anxiety is still technically a thing in this.
It is.
But
it
the actual
100% is.
driving experience is so similar now.
It's so similar
to what you would get in an internal combustion
What is this guy
engine.
doing? What are you doing, Holmes?
We are just driving around the most interesting people today. But okay, anyway, continue your thoughts.
So, look, I'm not going to pretend that I'm not on the internet and I don't read the comments that people put on the EV videos. There are people that will just black and white not accept that this thing exists. Like, just not give it the time of day. It's an EV, it's junk. They love to say that it's junk, especially because it's a Hyundai EV. I know that you're over 40 when you're calling things junk. You're outing yourself. But I know that there's a percentage of the population that's just not into EV. And like, that's cool, that's fine. I get why you would say that. But the people that would entertain an EV, a performance EV, this is the one.
Yeah.
And to me, like, for my use case, the EV thing doesn't affect me. Like there's maybe 1 or 2 times a year where I might have range anxiety, but I work from home, I have all these and I have a very unique lifestyle with what I do, just inherently. So like, it wouldn't matter to me. So like, whether I get gas or EV, it's almost more convenient for me to have an EV. And with this, having the shifting and bringing that experience of the sound and the snap that I say that I'm all about, this would fit into my life so well. So I would compare it against things like M cars and AMGs and, you know, Blackwings and that sort of thing. It's obviously a very different thing. It's much heavier. It doesn't rotate as organically, but it still is very, very good. So I would personally start to compare this, not a Tesla Model YP, not an EV6 GT, not a Mach-E GT, but I would start to compare this to ICE cars.
Yeah, I think like the performance is there and the experience is there, and basically what Hyundai's done is they've removed one of the last remaining elements of why people wouldn't get an EV, right? You know, there's been this long laundry list of things, not enough range, then it's how long it takes to charge, then it's the experience
doesn't make any sound, there's no soul.
There's no,
I get it.
Right, there's
I
no
totally
soul, there's no sound, there's no, it's untraditional, it doesn't feel right? But they're slowly starting to chip away and remove those barriers, and yeah, I mean, this thing is just awesome.
Yeah, no, 100%. I will say it on this video, I will probably buy this. I will probably buy this car. It's not a matter of if, it's probably a matter of when. And I think that's the biggest praise that I can give it. So thank you to Hyundai for letting us have a go in your amazing Ioniq 5N. Thank you to Road America for letting us take it around the track, and Hyundai for letting us do that. And we'll see you in the next one. Jesus Christ. And then you hit eco mode and then it's quiet.
Yeah.
And slow.
It's awesome.
It's perfect.